What would you do if you saw a large humanoid creature staring at you from the shadows? Can you imagine being lunged at by a 7-foot beast? What's lurking deep in the woods of Arkansas? Today, we test the believability of the Boggy Creek Monster.
Welcome to Believing the Bizarre,
where we dive into the unknown and the unusual
and tell you whether or not we find it believable.
That is right. It is Tuesday. Tuesday.
Yeah. I almost said Thursday.
No, it's technically Saturday when we're recording this, but it will be in your ear holes on a Tuesday.
Yeah.
Talking about some humanoid, Bigfoot-like people.
We got to remember this episode because this is the first time we do an episode in our new studio.
Ever. We did some Patreon stuff in a different room of our studio, but this is the first time we're ever in the studio. It's not even fully sound treated yet, but
no, I'm hoping we don't notice.
We did it. Yeah. Hopefully you don't notice either. We did a test and it seemed all right. It's really the microphones carrying all the weight.
We put a lot of weight on there. Yeah.
A lot of weight on the microphones, but we're excited. We got some long stories, encounters. We're doing Bigfoot stuff. I don't know if we'll ever.
That's a sub content of Pornhub, I think.
Okay.
Bigfoot stuff.
Sure, you would know that, Charlie. I just can't imagine us ever doing an episode just like Bigfoot.
Bigfoot proper.
Yeah, that's just like if we did an episode like, you wake up Tuesday, look at your phone, Believing Bizarre is a new episode. It's called Aliens. Like, man, I don't know if we'll ever do that. Like, what do we say? Like,
well,
here's be 5-hour-long episode.
You would do the Seattle Bigfoot, right? The Pacific Northwest Bigfoot.
I guess. This one is like neighbors with the Honey Island Swamp Monster.
Yeah, this is Arkansas.
Arkansas. Yeah. I drove through Arkansas one time going to visit our friend Parker in Oklahoma, and I was reading a book about Arkansas. Like, not that it was nonfiction. It was a fiction book that took place in Arkansas.
Arkansas, is it real?
Skeptical. But that's what I always think about. But it's cool. And let me just throw this up front because there are a lot of sources.
See, Arkansas is cool.
Did I say that?
Yeah. You're the only person that's ever had that opinion.
I drove through it and I had no problems. I had no problems while driving through it to somewhere else.
Is it next to Kansas? I can't even place it on a map. So that must tell you something.
It's above Oklahoma.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
I think. Or it's to the right of Oklahoma.
You're just making stuff up.
It's down there. It's beneath us in Ohio. Here are the sources. Legends of America, The Wiley News, Arkansas Times, Puzzle Box Horror, Cryptids Fandom, FoukeMonster.net. Here's one, Atlas Obscura. Here's one I leaned on very heavily and I actually purchased this. And I highly recommend if you like these stories to purchase it. It's my favorite style book I've ever read. It just encounters.
Okay.
From what I've read, I think there's like theories and skepticism and ideas from firsthand reports in the back of the book. But for what I use it for and what the meat of the story is, the meat of the book is, it's just encounters, which is fantastic.
Cool.
And that is the Boggy Creek Casebook by Lyle Blackburn. Not a sponsor, not an affiliate. I will not see a cent if you go buy that book. But if you're interested in what we talk about today, you should absolutely go buy that book.
It sounds pretty like a good time.
I enjoyed it. I got it on the Kindle. And I don't have a Kindle, so I was reading
the app.
It was on my phone.
Yeah,
it was very tiny, but that's okay. So before we get into the good stuff, let's just really quickly talk a little bit about Fouke, Arkansas, because this is where this takes place.
Is this in the Ozarks?
Well, I don't know what that's got Jason Bateman, right?
Yeah, it's a show. It takes place in some part of the west side of the Mississippi River.
Okay.
I don't know exactly where though.
I like Jason Bateman. I'm just throwing that out there.
I've watched the first scene of that show, and I was like, I'm out.
You couldn't tell from like looking out the windows, like if there's a mountain in the background, you couldn't tell where they were at. Did they have an accent?
I think there's a slight southern accent.
Yeah, I don't know. But I do know that this takes place not all in Fouke, but near Fouke. Apparently, it's a nice little city in Miller County, Arkansas.
Cool.
It's about 150 miles from Little Rock, which is what most people probably think of.
Mm-hmm.
It's known for
the capital, right?
Yes, it is. I think so.
I believe it is.
Okay. When I was going to Boston, we were trying to go through capitals that we could remember. Some of them are very difficult.
You and Claire?
And Claire's mom.
And Claire's mom.
And Joey. Joey didn't know any.
He was like, I don't even know Ohio.
Yeah.
He's like, I don't.
It's like, I'm not even 2, man. Give me a break. Scenic, nice. It's a nature lover area, apparently. People who like going out in nature. But you're not here for a lesson on Arkansas geography. Mm-mm. You want the goods. Let's move on to the Boggy Creek Monster. So like I said at the top, we are very much in Bigfoot territory here. And Charlie, I apologize. Yeah. I know you're not a big fan of Bigfoot.
I have controversial ideas about Bigfoot.
I think you don't like Bigfoot because you can't fit it in the Fae box. So what's the point? Like if it can't fit, if its feet are too large for the Fae box, if in the discussion you can't say, I think it's a Fae. What's the point?
I feel attacked.
No, because honestly, I think you could say it's a Fae, so I don't think that's the real reason.
You probably could if you argued it the right way.
There are some paranormal cryptids, stories, encounters, theories, ideas that just don't intrigue everyone. Like for instance, I could care less about the chupacabra. Yeah. And it's a huge one, and a lot of people like it, and they find it very interesting. Personally, not a big fan. So
that's just how I feel about Bigfoot. It's just totally the same way. Like it's a big ape. I get it.
I think that it's not even what it is that is the most appealing. It's the idea of finding it. I think it's like it's like when they talk about like when you like want to get the girl's attention, you want to date the girl. Yeah. And it's like not you and not me and not everyone, but like the idea of like the like you don't know what to happen when she's interested.
Are you saying Bigfoot's a cheerleader and you want her to notice you at this point?
Yes. Okay. I just want her to look my way.
I just wanted to see if that was the analogy you were going for.
Yeah. Okay. It's like I don't want to say like the game is cooler than the end point, but it's just like, You're
like, maybe you can be the quarterback and Bigfoot will look into the field and you'll throw the
tight spiral.
And then she'll pick you up in her arms.
She'll carry me home.
Exactly.
That's right.
Because we are 5'7".
We are 5'7". So just bear with me, Charlie, and feel free to comment where you see fit, as always. So the Boggy Creek Monster is also known as the Fouke Monster, the Swamp Stalker, the Jonesville Monster. Every single one of those was auto-corrected incorrectly. I just went by memory. Every single one of those I just said got auto-correct the out.
How was Jonesville?
Janesville.
Monster. Oh.
Janesville.
Okay.
So anyways, Fouke Monster, which is Fluke Monster. Fouke Monster, Swamp Stalker, that one actually stayed correct. Jonesville Monster, because it was at one point seen in Jonesville in the 40s.
I think you say it was at one point seen in Jamesville, so it auto-corrected it to Jamesville.
It knows more than I do. I just chat GPT'd the shit out of this. I don't know any of this. I'm reading it for the first time. And the Boggy Creek Monster / Boggy Creek Beast.
I heard that one. I heard that one.
So what is this monster? It's a huge ape-like creature that stands between 7 and 8 feet tall. It's estimated to be between 250 pounds and 400 pounds. That's the kind of wide estimation. That is the kind of estimation I can get behind. Because if I looked at someone, like if I looked at like a Bigfoot, I'd be like, that's between 250 and 400. Like,
what was it, 250 and 400?
Yeah. It's just saying you don't know. Yeah. And that's okay. It's
big range.
They're pretty tight with the height, though.
Could be a wide receiver or a linebacker.
Any of those things. Well, 400 is probably like a lineman, but that's neither here nor there. This creature is known for its very long, thick fur that covers its arms and legs. Its fur is dark, often appearing either dark brown, black, or like a reddish color.
Ooh, reddish.
I think it's interesting that it's long. Like, I guess it would be long, but like, what if it's like, when you,
who's gonna cut it?
Well, when you like straighten your hair and it gets long and like, what if it's like flowing?
They just have naturally straight hair. They're just, I have wavy hair. Do you have straight hair?
It gets wavier the longer it goes.
Yeah, I have wavy hair. You have wavy hair. Yeah. It's just got natural straight hair.
I'm jealous. It's got that Nick Carter, that middle part. Mm-hmm. In terms of its gait, I've heard conflicting reports. Some people say that it hunches over. Some people say that it hunches over and swings its arm kind of like an ape. But others say that it actually stands very, very erect and walks slow and steady like a human.
Sounds like a contradiction.
Sounds like it's fake. The Boggy Creek Monster is also accompanied by a putrid odor, which is a clear giveaway that an encounter with this beast may be right around the corner.
So it's also stinky?
Stinky.
I feel bad for him.
Well, the odor is described as a combination between wet dog and skunk.
Woof.
Your favorite Bath & Body Works scent.
That's a bad one.
Perhaps creepiest of all, though, is that it's reported to have deep red glowing eyes, which is pretty spooky.
Well, okay. Do people see it at night and then it reflects that, or like?
It could be that. Not always, but I mean, majority of them are probably at night. when he's going to get his curling iron or whatever, your straightener for the hair.
Yeah.
He's also getting his contacts from Spencer's or whatever.
Back to the stink.
Yeah.
In college, I worked for a carpenter.
Yeah. Was it a Bigfoot?
No, it wasn't a Bigfoot, although he was hairy like one. I went to class after carpentry. I felt really self-conscious because I was like, oh, I feel kind of musty. And there was this older guy in there.
Yeah.
And he was like, oh, don't worry about the smell. Girls like that stink sometimes. I was like, well, now I feel better.
Did he bring that up on his own, or did you tell him I'm self-conscious that I smell?
I did tell him I felt self-conscious.
It would be a little bit funnier if he didn't say anything and he just looked at you and looked you up and down and was like, hey, some girls like that stench. So what does this guy do? What is this Boggy Creek Monster do?
I think that would have been the guy from college. I don't know anymore.
So we're walking around with them big feet. It's known to kill livestock in the area and creep on people. And while it hasn't killed anyone, it's never been accused of killing anyone, spoiler alert, it is known to be aggressive. Like it stalks, it creeps, it approaches you. It's not afraid to tussle with you, but nobody's claimed to die from it.
So he was, the Boggy Creek Monster was going to be aggressive, be aggressive.
Yeah. It fits the cheerleader.
It's a callback, yeah.
Yeah, I like that. There's also a few track marks and claw marks that have been discovered over the years that some people attribute to the beast. One set of footprints was reported to be 17 inches in length, 7 inches wide. And one very unique thing about this Bigfoot is that it only possesses 3 toes.
I wonder if that's just like evolutionary or what?
Well, there's some theories about that we'll get to. There's also been a couple movies made about it. There's one major encounter that we're going to get to from the 70s. And that led to a movie called The Legend of Boggy Creek. Okay. But there's been sequels, and I'm sure they're all garbage. I haven't looked them up.
They sound very good.
Yeah. But there are a lot of encounters. Like I hinted, like one of my main sources was that book, the case book by, I want to get this right because I really respect this guy, Lyle Blackburn, the Boggy Creek case book. There's the plug again.
I've never seen a good Bigfoot movie. Have you?
That's a really good question. There's not one jumping to my head right now, so that doesn't mean that I haven't.
It could be done really well, I think.
Yeah.
I don't think I've seen it.
I feel like it has to have like that, like almost like that beast that you never know when it's going to appear.
Yeah.
And it like, I guess like a traditional monster movie.
Mm-hmm.
Like Rawhead Rex. You ever seen Rawhead Rex?
No.
From the 80s. Anyway, that said, oh, you know what? Let me front load this really quick because I got to call myself out because I always get on you about this. You know how much I love being chronological.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like as much as I love being chronological, there's a due diligence to like putting the story that made it what it is today. Like without the story I'm about to tell next, it might not be as big of a topic as it is. So I don't want to lead up to that. I want to front load that.
Okay.
So that's
but it happens later, I assume.
That's in the 70s. That's my way of saying I'm breaking my own rule. I'm breaking my own preferences. I'm going out of order.
As long as you're aware.
I'm aware. You can break the rules as long as you know what the rules are.
Mm-hmm.
But with that said, let's get to the encounters and the sightings of the Boggy Creek Monster. So there are reported sightings that go all the way back to the 1800s. Apparently, I don't have any from there, but a lot of the online articles claim that it goes back to the 1800s.
Mm-hmm.
So I have like pretty much the remainder of this episode are stories and encounters because there's only so much I can talk about in terms of what it looks like and what it does.
Yeah, it's got long red hair.
You know what it looks like.
Yeah.
It's Ed Sheeran after a bad weekend.
I actually just bought his new album.
Well, is he quitting or did he win his lawsuit?
Oh, he won.
Okay. If we ever get in a lawsuit, we're going to do the same thing. I'm never going to podcast again. Ever.
Yeah, he won.
I'll just take a bunch of different episodes about the same topic and be like, look, it's all the same thing. Is that what he did? We were something like the chords equal the same.
Probably.
I have no problem with Ed Sheeran. I saw him with Taylor Swift one time.
I love him.
What I'm saying is that this is going to be encounter heavy, which I love and I'm excited about. I cut, like, when I'm reading through this book, there's probably like, not even exaggerating, 25 stories I did not include because they're very much just somebody catching a glimpse of it.
It's second verse same as the first.
Yeah,
gotcha.
it's and I have some in here where they're along that lines, but when it's like it gets repetitive and I want to mention the volume of it because I think that adds to the credibility. Like I don't want you to think what we talk about today is all that exists. There's many more. But in terms of what's entertaining on a podcast, there'll be like okay. And I don't want, like, there's nothing mundane about seeing a Bigfoot. And I don't want it to become mundane even on this episode. right?
Yeah.
So I just want you to know that as we go through these, there are many, many, many more. And check out the book if you want to read more. But let's talk about the main one from 1971. So this took place between April 28th and May 2nd of 1971.
Okay.
During this time period, 2 families moved to a small rental home located in the north end of Fouke by Highway 71. The families consisted of Don and Patricia Ford and their 4 children, and Charles and Elizabeth Taylor, who didn't have any children. Both families, the dads, were there for work purposes. So it was like taking their families to this rental home because they had work at that point in time.
And they all stay in the same home?
Yeah.
Oh, there's a lot of people.
Well, it might have been a duplex.
Okay.
That was never explained. Maybe a duplex, maybe not. I don't know. This is the 70s, you know?
That's true. Things are different.
Just based on the premise where we're at right now and when I was reading through it, it gave me huge Kelly Hopkinsville vibes.
Yeah.
Because it's like cabin, 2 families coming together, stuff goes down, presumably. But anyway, on the night of April 28th, both families heard a strange noise outside. Something rustling around the property. Then they heard creaking sounds on their porches. The old boards were creaking. Something was right by the home. Startled, both families left and headed to the neighbor's home. It's a little dramatic.
Yeah.
But 2 days later, on May 1st, Don's younger brother Bobby Ford and his friend Corky arrived just for the weekend. Like they weren't working there.
Okay.
They were coming because they wanted to do some leisure activity. They want to do some fishing at Boggy Creek.
Add some more people to this.
More people. They're like, oh, is there a little bit of square inch in there? Is there a little extra room? Can people move?
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to
fill that in.
Put an end to that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they get there. They're ready to fish. They got their poles. They're going out looking around the creek. And they notice something strange. They see this really, really large footprint in the mud. It's human-like, but incredibly long, and it only has 3 toes. So they got this creepy footprint, and they're looking around, and the more they think about the footprint, and the more ominous these woods look. So they look at each other, look at this footprint, look back at each other, and they're like, maybe we won't go fishing today. Maybe we'll just go back and regroup with everyone else at the house. Would you have gone fishing if you saw that footprint?
I probably would.
It's like, oh, that's weird.
Yeah, I don't know.
Give me the minnows. So later that night, both families heard the strange visitor outside again.
Ooh.
More creaking on the steps, the porch, and rustling in nearby bushes. But this time, whatever it was outside tried breaking into the home. Doors and windows were tugged on and pounded against. But this time, the family stuck it out in the house until this unknown creature left. The following night, on May 2nd, Bobby was using the bathroom when suddenly this monster appeared right outside the window. Immediately, he ran into the living room, and as he darted out, Elizabeth's eyes shifted from Bobby leaving the bathroom to where he emerged from. However, her eyes stayed fixated there because she saw this huge, hairy arm come swinging violently through the window. Its eyes flashed briefly, shining a bright, horrifying red. Here's a quote from Elizabeth. Quote, "At first, I thought it was a bear's paw, but it truly didn't look like that. It had heavy hair all over it, and it had claws, and I could see its eyes. They looked like coals of fire, really red. It didn't make any noise, except you could hear it breathing." Unquote. So when Don and Charles became aware of what was going on and all the screaming, they rushed, grabbed their shotgun, and they dashed outside. They both witnessed a large, hairy animal running on 2 feet, heading toward the back of the house. They estimated that the beast was about 7 to 8 feet tall, and they also said that its chest looked like it had to be 3 feet wide. Rapidly, the beast entered the woods and vanished. They called the local constable, but he was unable to do much for the families, except he wanted them to feel safe, wanted to provide some type of protection for them. So he literally just gave them another shotgun. Like, you got one shotgun, here's another shotgun, see you later.
That's
good luck.
Kind.
It's something that probably would not happen today.
No, I don't think so.
If guns are your problem, here's some more guns. Guns fixing problems. So for the remainder of the night, Bobby, Don, and Charles stood out on the porch with their now 2 shotguns and flashlights while the rest of the family stayed inside. But surprisingly, the beast was not done with them on this night. Just a short while later, they heard banging on the back door. It was kicking it, trying to break inside. The men responded quickly, darting around the house and firing at it with shotguns. It was heading for the woods again, and they thought that maybe they saw it fall, but it was dark out, it's late, they lost in the shadows. So they were about to go check it out when they heard all of the women and Corky scream from inside the house. Bobby immediately took action, turned around, and sprinted towards the house. But as he got to the back steps in the porch, the beast from the shadows lunged at him. Here's a quote from Bobby. Quote, "I was walking the rungs of the ladder to get up to the porch when the thing grabbed me. I felt a hairy arm come over my shoulder, and the next thing I knew, we were both on the ground. The only thing I could think about was getting out of there. The thing was breathing real hard, and his eyes were about the size of a $50 and completely red. I finally broke away and ran around the house through the front door. I don't know where it went." Unquote. Pretty intense.
Yeah.
Kind of amazing that he got away.
Really. It really is. Unless he was wounded.
Like he got shot.
Yeah.
It makes me think that this thing almost wanted him to get away. Like it was a scare tactic more than anything. That's giving it a lot, like that's giving it manipulation factors. Yeah. And I don't know if that's a thing in the Bigfoot world.
Yeah.
But I also can't believe that this thing just, if it's like 7 foot, between 250 and 400 pounds.
If it's wounded, I could see it just like.
It's like, I got you. Ow, ow, damn. Oh, you got 2 shotguns? Yo.
There's a lot of jokes. Like I was first thinking, I was like, he just wants to sell warranty.
On your porch, I noticed you have a ladder to get up your porch. Have you considered steps?
And then he's in the bathroom. He's like, "You just poop in here?"
How big is this window in the bathroom too?
It's probably,
and how long was he watching him use the restroom?
That's actually really creepy though.
That's why he's the stalker.
Yeah.
So anyways, they tussled. He got away. He ran inside the house through the front.
What happened to the other guy?
Well, the other guys were chasing. They thought he fell. So they were running out to see what happened to it. Like they were chasing what they thought was the fallen shadow.
Yeah.
So they lost sight of it. It must have came around the back.
Mm-hmm.
Bobby heard everyone screaming inside. He turned around, so he separated from them.
Okay.
And then the tussle happened, and then he got away. And so the other guys are running to the house after hearing Bobby scream and the people inside scream. So they run to the back porch. At this point, the beast has fled, and Bobby is in total shock. And beyond that, he is majorly scratched up. Like he is cut up. Mm-hmm. So they took him to the hospital, and their first thought, because he was very erratic. He was incoherent. Like he was like kicking. He was just in a very bad state of shock. Mm-hmm. Their initial thoughts were alcohol. Like he was a little drunk. Yeah. So they tested him, but they determined that he had not been drinking anything. Okay. The next day, the constable and his team discovered pieces of metal from around the house, like the bottom of the house had been ripped away. There were scratch marks on the doors. They saw the busted window, and they found more of those strange 3-toed footprints in the dirt.
Do they sell like some kind of repellent they could put on this?
Boggy Creek away.
Yeah.
What do you like? You'd have to get in the mind of the Bigfoot.
You know
what is the Bigfoot not like?
I bet it's like spiders. Use peppermint.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Or monkey's brain, right? Like not real monkey's brains. It's like a thing. I don't know. It's
I've never heard of that.
It's I don't know if it's a plant or like a algae or something.
Some kind of moss.
A fruit? I don't know. It's something. It's something that you're supposed to put.
I've never heard of it.
It's supposed to keep them away, but okay. I've heard peppermint as well. Try garlic. You know, I know it's a vampire thing, but if the things from I Am Legend are vampires, then maybe everything's really vampires.
Maybe everything's just a vampire.
I guess. So that is the main story. That is because that came out in 1971 and the movie came out in 1973. Yeah. So there's encounters around this, after this, you know, but this is like what really put on the map. Because, I mean, somebody went to the hospital for this.
It's actually a really creepy story, though. If you take away all the jokes that you can make, yeah, it's creepy.
So now that I got that out of the way, let's go back to being chronological and go into some more encounters. All right, let's move to the year 1908.
Oh, 1908.
Yeah.
Before World War I.
Yes, that was 1917. Is that?
Well,
when we joined, it was
1917.
Yeah.
Right.
I only care about us. Come on. So this takes place in Mercer Bayou. I think it's Mercer.
Mercer, like the disease?
I don't. Oof. Makes me think of Mercy, like Mercyhurst. Like
I think of the disease.
Pencil. Okay, cool. So this is just south of Fouke, by the way, like location wise.
Right.
So a young girl named Kate accompanied her family on a fishing trip to Mercer Bayou. She claimed that while she was playing, she witnessed a hairy, man-like animal watching her from behind some bushes. But once it saw that she acknowledged it, it ran away into the shadows.
Okay.
That's the story.
So that's the whole story.
These are like that's the kind of stuff where it's like there's like 30 of them, 40 of them, 50 of them, 60 of them.
Lots of little ones.
Yes.
Do those help the point? I think they do. I think we determined at some point those little stories are significant.
You got some Darth Sidious shit over there with that. You can keep it up. I got no problem with it. I'm just saying, you look like you're about to do some Order 66. Order 66. Is it 66?
Yeah.
Commander Cody, execute Order 66. But yeah, no, I think there is credit. Like, I want to emphasize that again when we get to the discussion. That from like, I saw things from that were claiming they were from the 1800s. Let's just say 1900.
Okay.
From 1900 to like 2020, 2021, 2018, 19. Like, every decade has stories. Like, this isn't it wasn't like just in the 70s for a minute this dude was around. Like, this is like century long. So I think it does add weight. And even if it's just like a little girl with her family saw a hairy man beast thing staring at her.
Yeah.
Like, that by itself does not hold a ton of weight, but it's like sand, right? It's like one sand is not much, like one piece of sand.
One sand is not much.
What is it called? It's a grain of sand. I'm tired, okay?
One sand.
One sand.
Two sand.
One does not simply pick up one sand, but many grains.
Many sands.
Multiple sands is more than one sand.
It's true.
Man, normally my analogy game is pretty solid.
You just missed one word, one letter there.
One letter, one word, and it just throws it. I'm making Colin Coward very disappointed.
That reminded me of the thing from Harry Potter 3 where he's like,
that's the best one.
It's like he's like smoke. You just can't grab him.
You know
what I'm talking about?
I do. Yeah. But what I'm saying is that by itself, it's not that much. It's the sum of the parts, right?
Yes.
Like, if you have 100 of those in the same area within like 30 miles, 40 miles, that holds weight.
Yeah, lots of grain.
So let's move to 1910 Texarkana, which only makes me think of Zombieland.
Texarkana?
Yeah.
It makes me think of the serial killer that was in Texarkana.
Yeah.
That killed people.
And it just makes me think that I thought they just said Texas funny. Yeah, the first time I watched them, I'm like, Texarkana.
Because it's on the border of Texas and Arkansas.
Yeah. So a story from the Daily Arkansas Gazette in October of 1910 detailed a strange beast that was apparently running loose near Spring Lake Park in Texarkana, which is about 20 miles north of Fouke. Here is a quote from the article. Quote, "A strange beast, which roars like a lion, is reported to be running at large in the woods north of Spring Lake near Texarkana. The animal is said to have killed several pigs on the McAllister Place and several dogs near Newtown. The roars of the strange beast have so frightened the people of the locality that they are afraid to leave their homes after dark, and windows and doors are to be kept securely barred." Unquote. I like when it's like there's that like local neighborhood farmer that is just like, you just know him because you see him at like the 7-Eleven. Like, oh, I saw it over at the McAllister Place.
Yeah, Farmer McDonald's over there.
Yeah, it's just like, who? Like,
yeah.
I like they just say it like, yeah, Terry's house.
Oh yeah, McAllister's farm.
You know,
lots of pigs are dying there.
Lots of pigs. No bacon this week. Except for the Boggy Creek Monster.
And dogs. That's really sad,
and
too.
And dogs. It is sad. Well, the pigs are sad, too, my friend.
I know, but it's less sad because I've detached them in my mind and their food.
Dogs are pets, and piggies are food. So 1916, Wright-Patman Lake. So this took place 19 miles west of Fouke. Again, my computer thought I meant Fouke, which was a fluke. Near Wright-Patman Lake, which is actually in Texas. So this story was told by a retired geologist, and it was told to him by his grandparents. So the story actually takes place with his grandparents in 1916, but years later, their grandson is telling their story.
In like the 70s or 80s?
Whenever. It didn't say the exact year, but this takes place in the 1916 of this man's grandparents. This is their story. So it was a warm summer night, and his grandmother at this time in 1916 was 18 years old. His grandmother and grandfather were arriving home in their wagon, and with it being a full moon, The area was lit very well. They were turning towards their farmhouse when their mules that were pulling them started acting really scared and behaving in a strange way, like they just saw something unusual. They looked around, but they didn't see anything and thought, okay, maybe the mules just saw a snake or something like that. But a few seconds later, they heard a strange noise coming from the east pasture, which was described as something like an eerie, high-pitched wail. The mules began backpedaling and heaving. After a few moments, the couple saw an intensely tall shadow emerge from the trees. It was taller than a man and covered with long, dark hair. However, they noted that it was walking very slow and very erect. It wasn't hunched over like an ape. It started angrily motioning toward them with its arm while approaching the wagon. At this point, the couple were in a complete state of panic and fear. The man picked up his rifle and fired in the direction of the creature. It missed, but the sound was enough to make the beast run away. The next day, the geologist's grandfather surveyed the area for blood, tracks, or any sign of the creature or that he hit the creature with the shot, but they never found anything.
I couldn't stop thinking, what does a mule do when it's scared?
It backpedals. It's like a horse, probably. It doesn't neigh. It just goes, oh no.
Stands up like Scooby-Doo and
It's like,
shakes.
this is not good.
Whoa!
Give me the rifle. Let me be clear. I know we're only in the 1916 right now, but the 1916. This is a episode full of stormtroopers when it comes to
No one can take a shot.
Nobody can make a shot.
Gotcha.
Nobody. Point blank doesn't matter.
It's like,
yeah. So
interesting.
Let's move on to 1954.
So this thing's just like bulletproof. Just like
I
stuff
guess
like bounces off.
It's that thick hair. In 1954, a woman and her 2 children lived in an isolated farmhouse about 2 miles outside of Fouke. One night, the mother heard a noise and peered outside, and she saw a strange, large, hairy creature standing still as stone in their field. Concerned, the woman sent her son to go get their landlord, but he had to travel on foot. So by the time the landlord got there, the creature had peaced.
Yeah. I'd be so scared to be the son.
Yeah, like mom's terrified. She's like, hey, I need you to go walk right past him to get our landlord. Like, I want to make sure this doesn't affect my security deposit if this Bigfoot.
It is creepy, though, just him standing in the field.
Like, you're knocking on the door. Landlord's like, what is it? Like, hey, sorry, my mom saw, like, Bigfoot? I don't know. Like, she wanted, okay, like, what do you want? I don't know. She told me to come get you.
She said something about security deposit.
Oh, God damn. All right, I'll be there in a minute. You better not be gone by the time I get back. All right, I really don't want to be here, sir.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just sad.
It is sad. She's like, which of my children do I like least?
Which one can I live without?
Let's move a year later to 1955. So a man named Willie Smith.
Okay.
Why is that funny?
What kind of Red Dead Redemption character is that?
Oh, I thought you were saying redneck.
No.
Red Dead Redemption?
Yeah.
What about Red Dead Revolver, huh? Throwback.
Yeah.
I don't think that's a funny name. So Willie Smith had 2 separate run-ins with the creature in 1955. One night, he discovered the monster lurking around Boggy Creek, which ran closely behind his house, which is a real creek, by the way.
Okay.
Terrified, he fired 15 shots at it with his army rifle. Probably 15 misses, like that duck hunt.
Army rifle. I wonder what kind of rifle that was. Did it say what kind of rifle?
No, I would have put it in there. I wouldn't have known what it was, but I would have said it.
I'm going to imagine it was an M1 Grand.
Sure.
Which is, I think it's only 12 shots, so he had to reload.
Okay. That probably wasn't that then. I don't assume. Well I guess he could have.
15 shots. It could have been like a automatic rifle, I
M16.
They didn't have that then.
No. So whether or not he hit the creature, which I'm assuming he didn't hit
I don't think so. He's just firing anywhere.
He's got his eyes closed.
Just house a couple times.
That kid was like, hey, my mom just donezo. That's sad. So, but he was able to get away. It got away.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Back into the woods.
Easily.
But a few days later, he claims that the creature returned and was throwing chunks of rock at his dog. So once again, Willie grabbed his rifle, but again, the creature got away.
Might as well throw rocks back at that point that the rifle's doing nothing.
Yeah. So about 15 years later, around 1971, when Bobby's story about going to the hospital came out, Willie became a target for interviews because he was somebody who was comfortably saying he was willing to say, yeah, I saw it. Like some people wanted to say anonymous, but he was like, yeah, I saw the thing. So when people were coming to interview and the movie was coming out, he was one of the people that interviewers and journalists want to talk to. And he apparently there were 3 toed footprints are found around his property, and he was comfortable letting people see them and talking about it.
Okay.
So let's move to the 1960s. This is where there's a lot of encounters in Jonesville, Arkansas, which is only like 10 minutes from Fouke. I literally Google mapped it. Fouke, Jonesville, which my phone is still saying Janesville, is literally like 10 to 12 minutes. So it's close. Like because of these stories in the 60s. So this is still, I know we already talked about it. So this is still before the 1971 encounter. So around this time in these stories, it was kind of known as the Jonesville Monster. It wasn't until that story with Bobby in 1971 that it became the Boggy Creek Monster.
Okay.
So same creature, different name. But anyway, 10 minutes away, 1960s. We're in Jonesville. It's 1964. So Mary Beth Searcy was a teenager and spending the night at home with her mother, older sister, and her baby niece. Father and brother, I don't know, hunting? Out and about, somewhere. Out doing something. Everyone besides Mary Beth was sleeping, and she was being a good student and working on her schoolwork as the sun set and the moonlight poured in through her window. Lost in a trance of her studies, her sister woke up and asked Mary Beth if she could cover the bedroom window to prevent the cool air from coming in because they didn't want the sleeping baby niece to catch a cold. So Mary Beth agreed and she wandered over to the window. While doing so, she peered outside into the yard, which had enough moonlight to faintly reveal the presence of a large, hairy creature emerging from the woods. Mary Beth was shocked how this beast was walking on 2 legs just like it was a human. She screamed, ran from the window. I hope to God she grabbed the baby niece, and the entire family spent the sleepless night huddled in fear. Oof. 1965, also in Jonesville, a man named Fred Crabtree was hunting in dense woods when something caught his eye. He turned and saw a dark, shadowy creature standing behind thick trees. He immediately knew that this creature was aware of his presence, watching his every move. Slowly, he tried to get closer to get a better look, but immediately after his first step, the creature disappeared. Just a few months later, James Lynn Crabtree, a young teenager, was hunting for squirrels also in these dense woods of Jonesville like Fred. As the sun began to set, he was sitting under a tall acorn tree when he heard the sound of multiple horses running down a nearby trail. He heard splashing and he immediately knew that they were over by this lake. This piqued his curiosity, but also figured that, this is a neighbor's house, there's horses, maybe they were just trying to escape flies or if there's a dog running around or something like that. But almost immediately after hearing the horses, he did hear a dog bellow out in what seemed like pain. Fearing that this might actually be one of their own dogs that escaped and went over to this area, James went to investigate. On his way to the neighbor's area, the dog's bellow eerily shifted to a low, deep grunt. It was nothing like he'd ever heard before in his life. At this point, he started questioning whether or not it was a dog he was actually going to run into. When he got to the clearing, the nearby lake came into view. He was shocked at what he saw. Standing in the distance was a tall, hairy creature standing on 2 legs. It was no more than 30 feet away, with its back turned to James. He later called it a, quote, hairy man or gorilla-type beast with very long arms, unquote. He realized that this is the creature that spooked the horses and made the unusual groaning sound. Trembling with fear and only able to assume that this thing must somehow be a man, he raised his gun to try and scare the creature away. It paid no concern of the weapon, but now its sole focus was on James. It started walking towards him. Horrified, James let out a few shots and then fled in terror. A year later, James's father reported that the creature would periodically stalk their home. He was quoted as saying, quote, the thing came up to our house several times, only at night. It would scream out a few times and run the dogs away from home for a few days, but they'd always come back. The cattle would stampede and run through the woods from it. We would get out there with guns and lights. I was never sure of what I saw to actually shoot, though. Unquote.
That's actually really creepy.
Yeah, it's interesting that it's like there's the consistency in people saying tall, hairy man, 6'7".
It's very consistent.
Like
that's very consistent.
It's like I feel like I'm repeating myself and being redundant, but that's how these stories are.
Adds credibility because they're all seeing the same thing.
Yeah. So this is our final encounter from the 60s. This is 1967. Musician Carl Finch and his cousin were driving on a lonely patch of road on Highway 71 near Fouke. They'd just been in a battle of the bands in Louisiana, and they were heading up to Texarkana. As they were driving late at night, they noticed their headlights hit a figure running on the side of the road. At first, they figured this must have just been some strange man running late at night in this brown coat. But the closer they got and the more their headlights illuminated this running entity, they could all tell something was off. The way it ran was unlike any human they've ever seen. It didn't have a normal gait at all. Also, the closer they got, the more obvious it was that whatever this thing was, it wasn't wearing a coat. It was covered in thick fur. They passed it quickly, and although they were curious, they were also too afraid to stop and go back to see what it might have been. They noted that the creature seemed to pay no mind to them or the speeding car at all. That's like Skinwalker story. Like, it's not a Skinwalker, but that's like that type of like driving. You see something on the side of the road, like Dover Demonish. Just like you only catch a glimpse of it.
Just like, ooh, I gotta keep going.
Like it probably lasts longer. It feels like it lasts longer than it really does. Like it probably felt like it was a minute, but it was like 10 seconds.
Yeah.
But just everyone trying to like, oh, what is it? Who's running late at night? Is he wearing a coat? And then you get closer, you're like, that's fur. This is a fur coat.
Yeah.
But then you're just like, oh,
who's running in a fur coat?
Don't get in. But just like, I like how they describe how it's not like a normal run. Like, like how disturbing.
I was thinking like, it's almost like skipping. I don't know how is it not a normal run.
I think that's what makes it creepy is they don't have the words to describe it.
Yeah.
Like they can't formulate what they saw.
Yeah.
Which it just makes it just feel creepy and unusual. So let's move past the main story. So 1971 happens. All the stuff with Bobby happens.
Okay.
There's a lot more stories from 1971, but like I said, they're very much somebody's in the woods. They see a creature. It leaves. They're driving. Something crosses the road. It's a creature. They keep driving. Like there's a bunch of those.
That story with Bobby is going to stick with me. That one's really creepy.
It is. Yeah, it is creepy. So 1974, William Richmond was living in Fouke as a working hand on a local ranch.
Cool.
While out squirrel hunting with his brother, they witnessed a large humanoid creature swiftly walking throughout the trees. They watched in amazement as this creature broke saplings and thrashed around. For some reason, unbeknownst to them and us, it seemed very agitated. It let out an eerie growl that seemed to be a combination of a whistling and also low guttural sounds, something they never heard before. Within a moment, though, the creature started charging at them, and it was only 25 yards away at this point, just absolutely rushing. It looked muscular, 8 feet high, and literally almost 4 feet wide. Deep down, the brothers knew that they didn't have enough firepower to take this beast down, but regardless, they started firing anyway. Thankfully for them, when the guns went off, the beast let out a blood-curdling scream. They slowly retreated, keeping their eyes on this creature as it eventually left in a different direction, and they hastily got the hell out of there. So again, they didn't hit it, but the noise must have got to it.
Yeah. What's the football team for Arkansas?
They don't have a football team.
For the not national, for like college.
I don't do college football.
Oh, I don't know. I was gonna say he got cut from the college football team.
Oh, that's why he was.
They realized he wasn't a human. They're like, no.
They just didn't have a jersey for him.
Yeah,
they're like, you're actually really talented, but it doesn't. We don't have a jersey that comes in 4 foot chest size.
And he's like, oh, all right, and he goes to the woods, and it's just that's how he blows off steam.
He's like, but I got my grades up. So sorry, man. I don't know what to tell you.
I was tutoring, and
So. We're going to jump to 2000, and I know that's a major skip.
Whoa, yeah.
It's a major skip. Not to beat a dead horse, but it's because, I mean, there are 80s stories, there's 90s stories, but there are none that jumped out to me.
Nothing stands out. It's all the same thing, really.
I tried to find stories that each had brought something different, and if a story that I read felt too much like one that we've already covered, that's why, I really want to say, if you love what we're talking about right now, I recommend that book because there's so many and they go through the decades. And not to pimp something that doesn't even exist yet, but one thing that Charlie and I are looking at adding into a future Patreon thing is mini encounter episodes.
Yeah, so this fits right in there.
I'm going to keep this book right in my back pocket for this. I'm going to have a little satchel. You know, the slings, the over-the-shoulder slings are very popular these days.
Yeah.
I'm only going to carry like $5 in that book.
Isn't it just on your phone?
It is on my phone.
So there you go.
I mean, I probably won't have $5. It'll probably just be my phone, to be honest. But I'm going to have it with me at all times. And I'm probably just going to use that book for like the first 5 years that this extended Patreon content
Tyler's
exists.
episode again. Another episode of the Boggy Creek Monster.
Wow, what a surprise. Oh, somebody saw it and then it ran away? Ooh. Oh, no amount of sound effects can make that scary after the 15th time.
No, nothing I can do.
But I will probably pull from it just to keep it funky. So 2000, we're in 2000 now.
Okay.
I wanted a contemporary one. So on a chilly moonlit night in 2000.
Is that contemporary?
Yeah.
Is it?
23 years ago. Even like, honestly, even the 80s and 90s are what I would consider contemporary.
Okay. All right.
I think in the play world, even I think 60s is contemporary.
That's true.
50s might even too, but I don't want to go on that much fun.
I do like Death of a Salesman. That's the 50s.
Yeah, that was
Neil.
Dustin Hoffman was in the movie. The movie version, but
some of the actors, I don't know the actors.
Yeah, no, but yeah.
I can't think of the writer either right now.
I know. Arthur
Miller.
Yes. Hey. Okay. Okay. Let me make sure that's right. So anyway, a moonlit, chilly night in 2000, a hunter and a few other men were in a nearby area called Thornton Wells.
Okay. Is that near the area?
Yep.
Okay.
It's still in the area. At one point, the hunter's dog started aggressively tracking a raccoon's trail deep into the swamp. He followed his dog's lead, separating from the others. After locating the raccoon, they started back across the swamp to regroup with the others, but he heard something walking on flooded timber, as he described it. He called out, thinking that maybe it was just one of the men from his hunting group. There was no response. But then, he heard a deep, gurgling growl and was overwhelmed by this awful odor. His dog began whimpering and cowering behind the hunter's legs, which was very unusual for his dog's behavior. The hunter was confused but tried to stay focused and get across the swamp. In his words, quote, "After a few minutes, I heard the sound of someone or something walking on the water again. So I stopped and turned around, and standing right behind me was a creature of immense size. It was large, covered in dark, rusty brown hair that was wet and matted. It was ape-like, but stood straight up, had to be at least 7 feet tall. I don't remember ever being this scared. It made a hissing sound and reached down and took his hand and started scooping water and throwing it at me, making a deep, throaty noise. My dog started chomping at the leash, trying to get it, having regained their bravery. I grabbed the leash and tore out across the swamp, so scared that for a while I was actually running in the wrong direction. I could hear the thing behind me. It sounded like maybe 100 yards or so back. It followed me for a ways, but then after a while I could hear it across the bayou, making a moaning sound and moving away slowly." Unquote.
It's really creepy.
It's interesting behavior too.
They just threw water.
Yeah, it feels like I know you're there, like back up, get away.
Yeah, it's
territorial.
Yeah, it's not like I'm going to kill you. It's like, just please leave me alone.
I think there's some merit to either this creature's intelligence or demeanor that it hasn't killed anyone or reportedly killed anyone. I mean, maybe it killed someone.
People go missing hiking all the time.
That's true. So maybe it's just never been reported. It's 100 years, but
yeah.
I think it says something about the creature's behavior, demeanor, mindset that it does these things like stalking, throwing water, throwing chunks of rock, but it's not like the fact that Bobby's alive.
Yeah.
It just doesn't seem like this thing is just like, it's not Jaws where it's just like, kill,
it's not a blood,
eat,
it's
kill.
not a killer, killer.
Just want you to know like, hey, this is my woods too, man.
You got your part, I've got my part. And this is my water.
Don't look at my feet. I only got 3 toes.
Pretty embarrassed.
So 2021, this is from ArkansasTimes.com.
Oh, this is very recently.
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah. So this is an excerpt. So basically, just for context, I only took a small section of it because how do I want to say this? The author, who was Austin Bailey, was turning it into a creative piece.
Okay.
Like, you know, when it's like there's, and I don't mean this in a negative way. I just mean we go off on tangents. So I'm also not trying to bash someone for being flowery and we're going off, you know, in different paths. But it was very like when you set the stage and it's like pulling in different contexts and telling about the author. I don't have a good way to explain what I'm trying to say. It wasn't a focused piece. Like,
okay.
It was adding flower. It was like a creative writing piece. Mm-hmm. So I pulled up a piece that was very focused on what we're talking about. So journalist Austin Bailey was scouting out Fouke to check out encounters from locals. Quote, shopkeeper Bridget Story pointed us to a paper map of Miller County on the wall, marked up with locations of the most recent sightings. She played us a clip of audio captured out in the woods of an angry howl in the wind. I'm a skeptic, she admitted, but it makes my hair stand up. Unquote. Her husband also happened to be in the shop too, sprawled out in full camo in a booth after an unsuccessful morning of squirrel hunting. And while he seemed like he would prefer to join his wife in the skeptics camp, he had a few run-ins that he can't shake. There was the time he was out deer hunting by Horseshoe Lake and saw a grizzled brown face watching him. He looked over at his son, who was paying attention only to his phone screen. When he looked again, the face was gone. It was early in the morning, though, and they wonder if maybe he talked himself into it. Quote, if you think about stuff, you're going to see stuff, he said, unquote. But there was also the night that the family went frog gigging.
What? Frog gigging?
Frog
you
gigging.
Play music for frogs?
They're a harsh crowd.
Yeah.
That means they like it.
Okay.
Encore. Do you want an encore? Just that boom, jumps in the water. Like, damn.
Guess not.
Anyway, went frog gigging with the banjo on McKinney Bayou, and they ran into a wall of stink. It described as, quote, wet dogs mixed with skunk. Mm. He and his wife exchanged wide eyes, knowing looks, but said nothing about what they suspected was the source of the smell. Quote, I don't want my son to be scared to go out in the woods, he explained.
Okay.
Even though I won't be paying attention to anything other than his
cell phone. We'll get off his cell phone.
All right. So keeping it very honest here, before I found this book, I was kind of starved for encounters, not knowing that there was a book that was going to be a major ally to this episode. So I did what I sometimes do when I'm looking for content. I went to YouTube.
Okay.
Found YouTube videos on the topic that are well viewed, as in none of ours. And I looked for comments. You know, when you scroll through the comments and you just find like a big block text.
Yeah.
I'm like, let's see what this person's saying. So I have two short YouTube encounters.
Okay, cool.
So encounter one, quote, in midsummer 1969, I saw a creature.
All right.
It was mid-afternoon on a clear day with perfect visibility and was only 50 yards away from me and a buddy. We were crossing a lake to a remote campsite when we heard splashing sounds coming from the shore on the backside of the lake. Seeing anything like this was the last thing on our minds. We stopped to look at it and it saw us, stood up, and turned and walked in plain sight a few feet up an incline and then stepped behind a tree where it stayed a few seconds, peeking back at us. It was covered with reddish brown hair from head to toe, no visible skin showing anywhere, not even on its face. It looked like it was about 7 feet tall, maybe 250 pounds. My friend seemed to shrug it off the next day, and no one else seemed to want to hear about it. But I'll never forget it. Unquote. I just can't, I couldn't look at a Bigfoot and be like, 250. I don't know. That'll probably be something I say every episode where we talk about something like that. But I just can't.
I can't eyeball it.
I'm not good at eyeballing. It's the same thing when people are like, yeah, it looks like it was about 150 feet, like a UFO spaceship. I'm just like,
it's about 5 times bigger than us.
I don't know. I just am so bad with perspective, and I just assume I'm wrong. I just assume I wouldn't be I'd be like, well, yeah, it looks like it might be 150, but that's probably wrong.
Yeah. I don't know.
All right. Move on to our second and last encounter for the evening or morning or whenever you're listening to this. Encounter 2 from the YouTube. Quote, there are Bigfoot. Big feet? I don't know. They put Bigfoot. I'm gonna read this out.
I think the plural for Bigfoot is Bigfoots.
Okay, Bigfootins. There are Bigfoot in Hot Springs, Arkansas. My daughter was 5 and she was born in 1997. I was walking back with my niece. I feel like when you get so far into a comment and it scrolls, you're not going to go back up to the top. And
No.
what you really need to do is write it somewhere else, like it, edit it, maybe Grammarly. I don't care. Then just copy and paste it in your comment. Just that's my tip.
That's too much work, though. That's the problem.
Well, you never know what comment might end up in a podcast. And then you might end up with a sentence like, my daughter was 5 and she was born in 1997.
I like that sentence, though, because it gives us a year. We have to really think about it.
Yeah, you could just say it's 2002. My daughter is 5 years old.
Yeah, no.
But instead, you want us to do the work. That's fine. I'll do it. I did it.
It's a math problem.
There you go. I did it for you, listener. Back to the quote. I was walking back with my niece. It's funny because he's talking about his daughter now. How old is the niece? What year was she born?
She was born.
Anyways, I was walking back with my niece. And we went up into the mountains and we walked up through the mountain. Then on the way back, we smell a really musky, bad smell. When we came around the bend, we looked early and there was nothing. And when we went back out and through the thicket, there was a big black creature sitting in the back of the thicket. And I said to her, do we have bears here? She said, I don't know if we have bears here. I said, my hair is standing on its end. And she said, mine too. And as I said, well, I don't think that's a bear because it wasn't there before. And look at it. It's just staring at us. And the smell is really bad too. She said, yeah. So we got really scared and we needed to get going and ran the rest of the way home. It didn't look like a bear that was sitting down staring at us. So in my opinion, there are Bigfoot in Arkansas hot springs. I think looking back, I feel like I was harsh. This probably just isn't a native English speaker.
In Arkansas?
You don't think there's anybody that might not have originally grew up speaking English in Arkansas? There's not one immigrant. Not one immigrant. I'm going to assume that this is not a native English speaker. That's the high road for you. Okay. So, ideas, thoughts, what could be going on here, right? So, when it comes to the 3 toes, so this is the idea that Bigfoot are real, okay? They're thinking that because of it being like an isolated area in Arkansas, it's not like branching too far off. For 100 years, it's the same type of creatures being seen in this area. Mm-hmm. They're curious if it could be inbreeding. And that is what has led to the 3 toes.
Well, also, isolation leads to genetic isolation, which leads to different species.
Right.
In evolution.
That is true. And maybe that could be like if it looks a little bit different, with like the hair color or the size or things like that. But quote with one thing I found from one of the articles was, science has proven that one of the first things to happen in an inbreeding population is the deformation and mutation of fingers and toes. Mm-hmm. So it could be that this thing has lost them through years of inbreeding.
Is it like 3 spread out toes?
That's what I'm
Three
assuming.
next to each other.
I haven't seen
or 3 giant toes.
Print. I don't. It's 3 big toes.
3 big ones. I don't know.
It's 3 little ones. I don't know. But, maybe that had something going on. But other researchers apparently noted similarities between the Fouke monster, the Boggy Creek monster, and the Honey Island swamp monster.
I was thinking that it's so close.
It's so close to the swamps of Louisiana. It's literally the borders right there, according to this article, because I wouldn't know that. I wouldn't. I would not.
Okay.
Confidently. Proudly. I'm confident that I would not know that.
I would have a guess.
But you didn't know where Arkansas was, so how would you know it bordered Louisiana?
That was a bit of a joke. I knew vaguely where it was.
Okay. Now that you know that it borders Texas, you can place it in your mind.
I can.
Yeah. You probably... Oh! I put it together.
What's that?
You don't like Bigfoot because it's around Louisiana, which means it's probably a Saints fan, which means it's probably a Drew Brees fan. And you hate Drew Brees.
It all comes back to Drew goddamn Brees.
How do you feel about Derek Carr? Quarterback.
I think he thinks his name. I think he's a car. I think he thinks he's a car.
Okay.
My name's Derek. I'm a car.
His brother was also a car named David. So there's just people that are drawing connections between the Honey Island swamp monster and the Boggy Creek monster, which we have an episode. It's like about the same size, similar color, very stinky.
Yeah.
And around, creeks and water and mud and, lurking around the area.
I was thinking, how could it be? It's swampy, it's hot, it's humid. Mm-hmm. Why so much hair?
Probably that's why it's always agitated. I don't know. It's upset, or maybe that's why it chills by the water. Now, I think it'd be interesting to do like a side by side and like compare like is there a chance that the Honey Island swamp monster is this creature and it's just expanded, or are they two different creatures?
They're both not real.
That's something I would do. I respect that.
No, I think, I don't know. I could see it. I could see them being a relation, maybe a distant one.
Yeah. I don't know. Researchers that are dedicated to the Bigfoots, believe that they are, they're a creature that migrates. Yeah. So they believe that with it not being that far in its own isolated area, that it's possible that, whether it went from Honey Island to now Fouke or, vice versa, that it's possible that they could be similar.
Same thing, maybe.
In terms of skepticism, there are people that do believe that people are just misidentifying black bears. I think because, bears can go on their back feet. If you go all the way back to William's story.
Yeah, but they don't run.
They're not running on their feet.
Mm-mm.
But they can stand, they're between 6-7 feet tall.
Yeah.
If you believe most of these stories, and like I said, there's many, many, many more tiny but still valid encounters of people driving on boats, hearing noises, seeing these creatures peek around trees and homes and things like that. If you believe these to be face value, word for word true, then definitely not a bear. If you think people are scared and, when people are in a state of fear like that, then their imagination runs wild, then, sure. Maybe some of these are a bear. But even if there's if these are 95% bear, 5% something else.
What's the something else?
What's the something else?
The fae.
So with that said, that is our episode on the Boggy Creek Monster. Let's go to the discussion. All right, before we get to the discussion, we'd like to stop the episode and thank our newest patrons who, as of the recording of this Saturday podcast, are Nicholas, Sid, Jennifer, and Marin. So before we get to the discussion, we want to let you know what kind of fun bonus content is out there because there's a lot of it. But, it's too much for us to talk about in this already long episode. So we're each going to highlight one thing. Charlie, what would you like our listeners to know about our Patreon?
I'm going to highlight, I said it before, my favorite segment in the Patreon, the whole Patreon, which is saying a lot because there's a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
I love the quiz.
Yes.
The quiz where one of us presents the topic, right? The other one probably doesn't know much about it.
It's you this month.
It is me presenting to you this month. Will come out later. But it's almost like the other one's going in blind, and you just kind of have to rely on your previous knowledge to guess. And it's a lot of fun because there's a lot of stumping and hemming and hawing and coming up with fun answers.
And they can guess too.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You can play along with this game also. You don't win anything, but it's a lot of fun.
You win bragging rights.
Yeah. I won. I beat Tyler's quiz. Charlie didn't do that.
Yeah, that's true.
What a dumbass.
What I would like to highlight is the fact that if you are in our $10 dedicated tier for 3 months, you automatically get this awesome t-shirt. It's an awesome design. It says dive in the unknown and unusual. It's got a little scuba diver guy diving into this world. It's got a mountain. It's got a creature on it. There's night crawlers. There's this tentacle beast fighting a UFO that's shooting a laser beam into a whirlpool.
Yeah, it reminds me of a little bit of the scene in Lord of the Rings where they're going into the Mines of Moria just because of the tentacles.
Okay. But it's a really awesome shirt. It's not on our website because it's not meant to be bought.
You can't buy this shirt.
Not meant to be sold. It's meant to be given to our dedicated tier patrons after supporting us for 3 months and longer as a thank you and as something you can wear knowing that you're wearing something exclusive that you only get by being a patron. Nobody can buy their way in. It's through the support, but
through your support, we will gift this shirt to you.
Yeah, and it's super soft, and we've heard really good things about it from other people. And I actually own one. I haven't worn it in a minute, but it's awesome. Shout out Emily who did that design. So those are a couple of things. There's a lot more. Go to Patreon, search Believing Bizarre, or even our website. If you're looking for more content and you want to support the podcast, it means a lot to us. Allows us to keep doing more things like the studio space that we're in and these mics that we're using. It goes a long way and we do appreciate it. But with that said, let's get back to the main episode. So I'm very curious to hear your thoughts on this because just because you don't like the idea of Bigfoot doesn't mean you don't believe in Bigfoot. And
I come in this weird place of it where I'm very skeptical for no reason.
Yeah, that is true. It is unique because I think you can find something not interesting but also believe it, right?
Yeah.
Like, just because I might not find, I actually don't think I found the chupacabra that believable.
You didn't.
But even if I did, just because I don't love the topic doesn't mean that I discredit it.
Yeah, even if like you find aliens interesting, doesn't necessarily mean you need to believe them, or vice versa.
Yeah,
even.
if you don't find it interesting, doesn't mean it's not real.
Yeah.
So let's not talk about Bigfoot at large. Pun, I guess, not intended. Specifically, the Boggy Creek Monster. All these encounters, like I said, trust me, there are many more. Minute. Even though I still truly believe seeing this thing is not minute. But what do you feel? What are your thoughts?
Okay, so my biggest argument of the Bigfoot thing in general is, well, you can apply it to this as well. What happens to the bodies? Why haven't they found a body? And I know they found footprints of this creature specifically.
Yeah.
Are there casts of those footprints? Like, why isn't that evidence documented? And they're looking for the remnants, the bodies, the poop, all that stuff.
The poop. I'm a Bigfoot dung expert.
If it's a physical creature, where are the bones? And I think that's a valid argument.
Yeah.
But also there's the question of, is it a physical creature? Is it some kind of elemental creature? Is it the remnants of the human id? I don't know. It could be anything like that too. I have no proof either way.
Yeah. I think on a grand scale, that's a very good argument. I mean, some people believe Bigfoot creatures are solo. Some think they go in packs. Mm-hmm. They climb trees and hide up in there, or they have like dwellings. So it could be if if some one of them dies, and they take and they bury them, or they hide them, or they eat them. Like, I don't know. And then I guess there's also the idea that they, live for a very long time, and there's very few of them. So it's not that they're, they only live 40, 50 years and we're constantly just glossing over remains. But what if these things live like 150 years, and in our lifetime, or in the last 150 years is when people are probably, I don't know, I don't want to discredit, like the 1800s, but I feel like we're more advanced now. We're maybe in the in the 1800s, they would just look at bones and be like, oh, it's whatever, Yeah. Not saying that's true. There's a lot of things that have been discovered long time ago.
There is that one thing where I think it was ancient bones of like a giant sloth were presented to a president, and he thought that they were around, that these giant creatures were still around. Yeah. Which I thought was pretty interesting.
I think one of the biggest issues is a society issue, and I'm not gonna dive into that on this podcast. But I feel like if someone came forward and was like, hey, I was searching in Arkansas, I was squirrel hunting, and I found a complete skeleton of Bigfoot and took a picture of it, took a video of it, immediately 50 people would say it's real, 50% of people would say it's fake.
I agree with you. I'd be very interested to see that.
There'd be people that say it's real, and there'd be people still say that it's fake, and then there'd be people even on a more extreme side that say it's real and the government is hiding it from us. And I'm not saying, and then there's people that's like, you're trying to distract us from other things that are happening. Mm-hmm. And it would, and then somehow it'd become politicized, and it would stray away from like this guy that's like, hey, can I bring the conversation back to like, I'm not trying to gain anything. I literally just found the skeleton. I'm not saying that it's Bigfoot, but I'm saying what I found is real. Yeah. Like, can we keep the conversation focused on that?
That wouldn't happen.
And it wouldn't. Yeah. So it's like the UFOs, government's like, hey, let's talk about these UFO files. And even if people want to believe that's true, there's like people that are like already going a step past that. And it's like, what are they really distracting us from if they're talking about these UFOs? And I'm not saying that's not a valid argument. I'm just saying, like, let's focus on what they are saying.
Because the main thing is, it's true.
Yeah. But in that mindset defense, and going back to Colin Coward, who I mentioned earlier, one thing that he always likes to do is not talk about the story, but talk about the story behind the story, and talk about why a story got out. So that's kind of the take that they're doing, which is like, okay, the stories that Bigfoot skeleton was found, but why is it trending on, like, who is allowing it to trend on Twitter, and what is the purpose behind that, So all of this to say, sorry, I'll bring it back.
It's okay.
Is to your point, even if someone provided evidence of a Bigfoot remains, I don't think anything would come of it because people stand their ground on whatever side they want to be on.
To your point, okay. To this creature's point, there are a lot of encounters and a lot of people talking about how they see this thing in the woods, and it's almost like a known entity, right?
Yeah.
Especially in that area. And it gives it a lot more credit. It does. To me, it does. And I don't know if I've ever felt more believable about a Bigfoot.
Yeah. It is funny during my YouTube, and they didn't say in Arkansas, but somebody on YouTube commented, was like, yeah, I bought a gorilla suit and I used to hide in certain areas and freak people out just to see if they tweet about it or things like that. Huh. It's like, dang, like that's cruel, man. Funny, but cruel. Yeah. I don't know, like, what this could be. What amazes me the most is how not docile, because it does have aggressive tendencies, obviously. Like, I would even say it leans aggressive, but it's not looking to kill.
I think it's more bark than bite, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, because you could say there aren't reports of killings, but if people are dead, how do they report it?
Yeah. That's true. And even though it's like, it gets the rep that it kills dogs and cattle, there's only one story that I found.
Just the one, right? On the farm.
One. Yeah. And that could be anything, just blaming the Bigfoot. I don't know. Like, I'm not speaking on Bigfoot in totality. I'm talking about this specific creature in this specific area in Arkansas. I go believable. I'm a little biased. I saw more encounters than you heard on this podcast, but there's a lot of them. A lot. And for over a century, people are claiming to see this thing in this area.
I don't believe that all of them are this creature. I believe some are bears, some are other things. But even if a percentage is this creature, then it's a creature. And I believe it. I go believable.
So that is our episode on the Boggy Creek Monster. I think, now we've done creature features, but I think, this is the first Bigfoot focused episode since Honey Island, right?
I did the Grassman.
Oh, you did do the Grassman.
Yeah.
Yes, you did Ohio Grassman. So we've done 3.
Yeah.
We've covertly talked about Bigfoot.
There's the skunk ape still.
Yeah.
I think there's another one up in like the Massachusetts area, right?
Yeah. He's still trying to park the car.
He's got a Patriot shirt on.
I still love Tommy.
Yeah.
No, when I was there over the weekend last week, I think, and I knew this from my last time I was there in 2019, like 8% of the people in downtown Boston, I feel like, have the accent. Everyone else is just, they moved there.
Yeah.
It was a good time, though. I had a good time in Boston. Shout out Rafi. But we appreciate you listening. We appreciate everyone hanging with us for this long encounter-filled Bigfoot story. Good stuff, though. Any time that we can load a bunch of encounters in an episode, I'm down. I love it. It puts you in the scene.
Encounters are fun.
Puts you in the moment. I love it. I love it. I love it. So I hope you love it as much as we do. And if you do love it as much as we do, and you like the podcast in this episode, if you're on Apple, if you're listening on your Apple iPhone device, please leave a 5-star rating. And if you just want to leave it at that, that's fine. But if you'd like to say some kind words or say what you like about the podcast or just keep it simple at aw man, that's great. We do love that. And if you're listening on Spotify, hit the 5-star rating and you'll see that prompt. What did you think about this episode? It's automatic. That's not the way I would say it. It just automatically pulls it. But if you'd like to give your 2 cents on what you think about this specific episode, we love to hear it. And actually, I think I probably have a lot that I have to go through and publish from last episode. But we do look at them and we do appreciate them.
And if you're thinking, there's some cool phrases that come about from this podcast. I wonder if I could wear them on a hat or a shirt or even a tote bag. You can. You can do that because we have some fun merch that's up right now. We
got the bad juju. That's what I thought you were referring to.
The bad juju?
I was going to say, I don't think you can get that on a tote or a hat, but you can get
the believable.
You can get logo stuff on.
You can.
We got duffel bags, hats, shirts, tank tops.
There's some pretty cool stuff up on the merchandise. And on our Instagram, there's a picture of you wearing one of those fun shirts.
Wearing a shirt.
It's me kicking a night crawler in the leg.
anime style.
I think it's more comic book than that, but
You're right. Sorry, I was thinking of the Chargers schedule release. You had to enjoy that.
I really did. It was really fun.
I watched the Browns. See, okay, what sports? And the episode's over, so I'm gonna just go on a tangent here. What sports teams do is they find a local celebrity and they like latch onto them like a leech. For some reason, we have MGK, who they've kind of they'll let him perform at random things, but they pretty much let him go and do his thing.
Yeah.
For some reason, a lot of Cleveland sports love The Miz. The Miz, the wrestler, WWE wrestler, is from Cleveland.
Okay.
And so they often rely on him. Like if we're in the playoffs, he'll do like a promo, or like if we're, drafted, he might come out and do something, or he'll hype up the crowd. So because of the wrestling ties, the Browns did a WWE style wrestling intro. So the anime one that you saw with the Chargers.
Yeah.
So what we did is our Brownie the Elf fought. So they would have like a wrestler come in based on whatever team we were playing, like poking fun at them.
Uh-huh.
And then Brownie the Elf would just destroy them in the ring wrestling wise.
I see.
But so I saw that. I'm like, that was creative. Like, good job, Brown's social media team. But then later I saw the Chargers one.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you sent it to me, I'm like, I should have thought to send it to you. It was killer.
It was really good.
You probably didn't
really
understand
good.
all of the context with they were making fun of the teams.
Did you catch all the anime references they put in there?
No. So
okay,
if we combined our brains.
Yeah.
Yeah, actually, like
oh my God. So they did a Full Metal reference. They did a Demon Slayer. They did a lot of references.
We should watch it together and break it down from both of our perspectives.
That might be a good YouTube content.
Yeah. Did you have a point?
No,
you did. No, what was the... No, I didn't have a point.
Oh, merchandise? I don't know. Where the podcast? Rock the Pod?
Rock the podcast. And, like we said before, Patreon's out there. So we're going to be doing some new things, shuffling things around this summer.
Ooh, it's exciting.
So if you want to join now, that's not a bad thing. And if you're holding out until summer, check back then, because there's going to be some changes.
It's going to be different.
It's going to be different, going to be cooler. But not to scare anyone who's a current patron. You're not losing anything.
No.
We're not taking from anything that we're currently doing. We're getting less sleep, and we're like, let's get even more less sleep.
Yeah. Well, you know what's going to happen is we're having new stuff come out, and also in higher and in the lower tiers as well.
Yeah. It's like that Jim Gaffigan line where he's like, let's get some to eat, and then we'll get some to eat. It's like, well, let's put out some bonus content, and then we'll put out some more bonus content.
Yeah.
We don't need to see our families again. I'll see myself it'll be 18, be like, but did you listen to Do You Believe the Messiah?
He's like, there's so much bonus content, Dad.
Never too much. But anyway, thank you everybody so much for listening. And if you're still listening, we love you. But as always, I'm Tyler.
And I'm Charlie.
And catch us next week on Believing the Bizarre.
Podcast as bizarre as you are.